So today what we're going to talk about is changing standard to vertex form. And we're going to use that method of completing the square that we learned. Right? So we investigated a lot of little examples. Now what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit big picture. So we already talked about something like change y is equal to x squared minus 8x, x squared plus 8x minus 3 to vertex form. We did something like this, and the first thing we talked about needing to think about was trying to remember what vertex form looks like. Right? So we want to turn it into that, and that involves having a perfect square. Right? So remember we started with x squared plus 8x, and then we had that minus 3 at the end there, and we were okay with leaving that 3 there because we know that it's important, just not right now. So we're saying we'll get back to you in a little bit 3, but I'm just going to leave you out there and I'm going to work with the other stuff for now. Okay? So then what we said is, what do we need to add to that first part in order to make it a perfect square? Right? Because then we want to be able to factor this. So in order to make that a square, remember we looked at it a couple of ways. One way was looking at this diagram, and we decided that there was 16 units missing, right? So we'd put a 16 there. And then we'd also have to subtract 16 because we can't just add in 16. We have to subtract 16 as well. And you guys also came to the conclusion of the fact that 16 came from 8 over 2 squared, and that 8 is from right there. All right, so that's completing the square. We've done that. Now we want to just manipulate it the way that this looks. So we can try to factor that red part right there, x squared plus 8x plus 16, and we already know that it's a perfect square because that's how we made it. So it's got to be x plus 4. And now we have minus 16 minus 3, and we said that we're going to get back to that minus 3. We can't just leave it out, but we can simplify it all to say minus 19. And we're pretty happy about that because that looks like vertex form. Right? So we've changed standard to vertex form, and you guys kind of did all that figuring out by yourself, which is awesome. Now, I want to look at a more complicated question. So what if I throw that negative 2 factor in there? Okay, so let's see what this does. So again, we want to try to remember vertex form needs to look like this. My bubble is a little too big, so there it goes. So I want to make it look like that. So let's start again the same way, saying, hey, that 3, we'll get back to you in a second, right? We're going to work with the other stuff first. But there's a problem because in that bracket, the x minus h, there is no negative 2, right? So I need x on its own. So what we can do is we can force that 2 out, right? We can try to solve this problem by looking at those two terms and try to take that 2 out by common factoring between these two. So when we common factor, we take that 2 out, we bring that minus 3 down because we got to keep them around, and then we say that we're left with x squared minus 6x, right? So this x squared minus 6x right here comes from factoring negative 2 out of there, right? We factor that negative 2 out, we're left with x squared minus 6. So notice that now we're back at the same problem. What do we need to throw into there to make it a perfect square? And you guys know that it's a 9, right? And we also know that we can't just add 9. Oh, we also know that that 9 comes from 6 divided by 2 squared, right? That's where my 9 comes in. And I can't just go adding it in. I also have to subtract it. So I have plus 9 minus 9. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this, and we're going to turn it into that perfect square that we know that it is, right? So here we go. We're going to rewrite everything, changing that into a perfect square. So that square is x minus 3 squared. And we can never forget that we have that minus 9 there, right? So now you can see that we have a minus 2 here, right? And that minus 2 is actually our a value. And it's okay that that's there because there is an a value out here, right? So we've got an a value. Now what do? Well, we can start writing. We have our minus 2 times x minus 3. Now we have to realize that this negative 9 here isn't just a simple minus 9. It's actually multiplied by negative 2. So that should actually be plus 18. So because I had to multiply negative 2 by negative 9, because the negative 9 is in the whole bracket, we had to add 18. So along with that plus 18, we also have our minus 3 at the end there, right? So now we can try to, so we brought that minus 3 down. So now let's rewrite the whole thing. I've got all that stuff is sorted out, but I can collect these guys into like terms because it's just plus 15. And there it is, there's vertex form. Okay, so lots of little steps. We'll spend some time practicing this, but the main thing that we need to understand is all we're doing is we're manipulating this equation to look a different way, but we're not allowed to actually change anything. That's the big idea. Okay, so that should make us pretty happy. Looks like vertex form, and we'll be able to get through it. All right, thank you.